Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition, and today we're going to talk about sharing our content. Actually, I was going to talk about something else, but the minute I hit record, I heard to do this. So that's what we're going to talk about. Because what you're going to find is as you expand in your consciousness, your intuition, what used to be your intuition, which is sort of a mouthpiece to your soul, is kind of how your soul talked to you when you were in your human consciousness, now starts to become more than just a mouthpiece, because you embody so much of your soul in it doesn't need a mouthpiece. Your whole body really is the mouthpiece now, because you embody in so much of it and different aspects of it, that your whole body is really not your soul, which is in the beginning, that's not how it is. So you have a lot to say, even if you don't realize you have a lot to say, because we get so much information. You know, our sexual energy turns into creator energy. We want to create, recreate, create. We go through a lot of different transitions, a lot of different, kind of metamorphosis in all of our ascension process. You know, there's so many different pieces and parts to it, and so many different things that we go through. And there's a part of that where and you get to more where you don't really have a glimpse. Like intuition is kind of like a glimpse of something. You just know you're supposed to do stuff, and you just know you have to do certain things. And usually the biggest fears are the ones you know you have to do kind of immediately, because it's super important you get them done to kind of bust through that fear, to break through to another reality. That's why it takes so long for human realities to sort of come forth, because we're held back when we're in our human consciousness. We're held back by all our fear. We don't go forward. We don't march forward as fast because we let all the story and the fear get in the way. When we talk about, kind of jumping through timelines and going through things faster, that's what we're doing. In our human experience, it could have taken you, 40 or 45 years to get to a certain point where you made a certain amount of money, you had a certain amount of, air quote, success. And when you're in your higher realities, you still kind of go back to where you don't have anything and you have to work back up again. And it might take you 4 or 5 years to do that, which seems like a long time when you're in it, because you kind of feel like the whole human stuff didn't matter and now you got to start all over. But, 40 to 45 years compared to 5 years, it's not really too bad because you're going through it quicker. You're getting to the root of it. You're doing what needs to be done. You're not listening to the story of why things can't be done. You're just kind of pushing through. You're pushing through. So your intuition sort of becomes just your whole body. You don't have to wait for a glimpse of something. You just know you're supposed to do stuff. You kind of get to where you're in the flow of what is next for you. What's aligned for you to do that day? What's the highest vibrational thing you can do in that moment? What role you're supposed to play in different realities. But while we're going through all these shifts and all these changes, we'll eventually get to a part where we might want to share that information. And this is where things can get a little hairy because we don't want to talk about the weird stuff. I remember, I don't know if I ever had too much of an issue with talking about weird stuff. I didn't like being on camera. I'll definitely say that. I've never liked being on camera. So that was one thing I did not want to do. More so than to talk about the weird stuff. I would always go out and talk about the weird stuff, but the camera thing I didn't love so much. Live streaming I didn't like so much. It would used to take me so long to do one video. Now I can do a video really quickly if I'm in the vibration of doing one. If I feel like it's one that I can actually do that's going to benefit, and not just to put out something, because you also get in that human mindset where you have to keep putting out stuff. So it has to come from a different place. If it doesn't come from the right place, it doesn't have the right vibration to it, and it's not really worth putting it out. So, I totally forgot what I was talking about. Oh, okay. Sorry. Got it back. We get to certain things that we kind of know we have to do. And there does come a point in everyone's journey when you have to talk about it. And sometimes we can put a certain spin on it. Everyone kind of puts their own flair on it. And everyone's experience isn't exactly the same, even though energetically everything is very similar. How the experience unfolds for you in your existence, it might be a tad different. But from what I found, we all have sort of a similar vibe going on. And how the ascension process works for people. Very simple, similar things play out for everybody, even if the energy behind it is the same, but the situation might be different. The situation it's applied to might be different. But because when we're talking about multidimensionality and higher consciousness, it doesn't matter the situation. The energy is what's important. So if someone talks about something and the energetics hit you as, oh yeah, that's happening to me right now, but in a different way, you get it. But I see a lot of people that don't really want to talk about it, and they don't want to, they want to kind of sugarcoat it or try to make it, spin it human, and kind of spin it to where it's still, you don't have to change your life to live this life. And then that's not true. You kind of do. You can't keep a human life and not live from a human consciousness. It doesn't work like that, because when you don't live from a human consciousness, you don't really want a human life. You have no existence, or you have no drive for it. There's nothing inspiring about it. You want higher aligned, higher existences, which don't come from keeping your human stuff around. We fear the judgment of other people, which is really our judgment. Anytime we fear what someone else is going to say, it's our own judgment. We don't even give someone a chance to judge us. We kind of judge ourselves. So we might find we kind of say it a different way. There are certain words in the beginning I would not say, because I didn't want to get pegged like that. I didn't want to get pegged in that community, the spiritual community, which we're kind of even beyond that. We're not really in the spiritual community. We become like spirit and form. We're not even in those communities. So you might find you don't really feel like you fit anywhere. I never particularly felt like I fit in any of them. I don't really fit in any of the communities. I never really felt like I did. But we're going to all go through different processes where we might not feel like we have a lot that we can share with people. But because everyone's in a different place, and because everyone's in a different space, you're going to find that what you feel that you're supposed to do, and you have a lot of fear holding you back, or judgment holding you back on what someone's going to think if you get out and say certain things. It's important. If you feel like you're supposed to say something, you should say it. And don't worry about the judgment of it, because it's our own judgment we have to work through. If you're going through a certain experience and you want to talk about it, and you want to talk about it in a setting because you feel like it's going to help somebody else, we get into this mindset that it has to be this big thing we have to do. We have to have, all this stuff set up before we can say that. And that's why a lot of times a lot of us who've come through now, we don't kind of succeed in one channel or the other of getting information out, because we have to be on all of them. And if we did one and it was super successful, we would just stay there and we wouldn't go to all the different ones. There's a reason why, because you can't promise stuff. You can't promise you're going to get this, you're going to get that, because everyone's working in their own timeline. Everyone's working in their own consciousness on what they're willing to do to get to what the next step they're supposed to get to. It's not as cut and dry, though it's extremely natural and organic. It's just not as easy, because we, as human consciousness, somewhere still, we always have it. We don't completely transcend it. It's still there somewhere. It's just we don't make choices from it anymore. It's still there. And we can still be bound to it, and it can bound us to the old. We don't want someone else's judgment. We don't want to have to explain why we just had to, we divested our whole 401k to invest it in our ascension journey. We don't want to have to explain that to a partner who's not going to understand that. We don't want to have to go and share that experience and open ourselves up to that type of attack, right? Because we feel like it could be a very vulnerable thing to get on and talk about stuff that might seem weird to people, or it seems kind of out there. But it's really not as out there as we think it is. Because I know when I first started talking to people about it, I usually start doing it more in the community before I went actually where I was doing it more virtually a lot. And I was shocked at how open everybody was to it, and how they wanted to talk about stuff that had happened to them, And then you start to realize that no matter where you are in your process, someone is going to want to hear what you have to say. Someone is waiting for you to get out there and talk about your experience, because it's going to assist them with their experience. Someone will be waiting for you. That's why some of our processes we have to be in certain places at certain times, because there are people waiting for us to impart some type of information to get them to the next part of their journey. So when you feel like you don't have anything to share, usually it's not so much we feel like we don't. We have a fear of what we want to share and how it's going to be received. So kind of pull back away from the fear and kind of look at the judgment you have around it. There's so many things that were not accepted 20, 30 years ago that are now fully accepted. And we look at those and go, boy, I wish I could come out about that stuff. That's easy, you know, coming out about multidimensionality and coming out about um, galactic aspects and all those certain kind of topics. They seem more taboo than other things nowadays. So it's so funny how we want to judge it first. So if you feel like you're supposed to be sharing something, and it doesn't have to be on any massive platform, it could just be you're supposed to share it with another person. But always look at why you want to do it. Make sure you don't have an agenda or a motive around it. In the beginning, we will, you know, and that's okay, because we're also busting through our fears when we're doing stuff that we don't feel comfortable doing. We're kind of busting through our fears. We're also learning to talk in higher dimensional, from our higher aspects, which talk differently than our human aspect does. You know, we don't phrase things the same. Our frequency of our language is different. Our frequency of our voice is different. You know, we don't quite look like we used to. It's a totally different type of existence in a sense. It's more of a, so there's going to be parts of it where we have to get out there because we're supposed to. And then sometimes you feel like you're not supposed to be out there. There were times during a lot of the COVID realities that a lot of us really just kind of hung back because we weren't supposed to be out there. There was too much infighting among everything. So some people didn't share as much. Some people felt like they were supposed to be on the front lines of that. You know, it's kind of going to depend on what you feel the strongest to do. But if you feel strong about getting out there and sharing something, look at the fear you have around it. And look at why you have that fear and why you don't want to look like the weird person or start leaving realities behind when you still have so many people in your life that are still attached to those realities. And we're still using words like we survived that, or we're still using the human words because we don't want to fully embrace what we do. We don't want to fully embrace. We're playing into people's victim energy. We're not empowering people the way we should be. So it's time for a lot of us to really step up and look at what we still play in, what we're not sharing, what we still play in, because we don't want to be so exposed in a sense as to what we're really here to be and do, because we're not doing anyone a favor trying to keep one toe in the old systems and one toe kind of almost in the old language or the old words, and not fully embracing where we're going, or where a lot of us, you know, already are, and where we want to go, and the people that had come before us, where they are and where they're going, because we don't want to put ourselves out there. So I don't know. That was the one I felt like it had to come today. So all right, put yourself out there and keep practicing the art of intuition.